start things off with, and we've seen a lot of variation out of, I'm going to start with YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT here, a lot of variation of them. AKTM himself has played McCree, he's played Genji, he's played Soldier. A little fact about one, takes a taxi to anywhere that is over 100 meters.
Very skinny for a guy that takes a lot of taxis.
So, I don't know, like, it's interesting correlation. I don't think it's,
maybe he does
I don't think that's
necessarily
always true. Maybe like he never goes anywhere over 100 meters, so he walks everywhere.
That's yeah, that's why he he doesn't take many taxis. He does a lot of 90-meter journeys. But at any rate, it's gonna have to do a journey of I don't know, 1,000 steps. How long? How many steps is an Overwatch series? But it is a bang.
I've never counted.
Yeah,
right?
Set up on this high ground. So YOSHIMOTO sort of rotating around to try and get into the other side. I do kind of like this, but they do still have to break this defensive position.
And the other thing is, Logitech Geobank can hide here, but as the point opens, they need to be able to contest the point. They have to have threat onto the point, and that's another issue they have to overcome right now. So both teams will be jostling for positioning.
YOSHIMOTO aren't really taking advantage of that exposed point, though. Saint diving in without too much follow-up, and now the follow-up coming in, and they pressure out Narc and indeed Blue as well. The kills starting to come through, though, in favor of a Bang, who have kind of weathered the storm. Catch onto Saint with the hook and headshot. Well, not quite headshot, just the body shot, but it's still brutal. And the Holt off the edge for Mason. Unfortunately, I actually think YOSHIMOTO could have played that very differently.
Honestly, YOSHIMOTO could have made a kind of play where they hide in the sort of nostrils, I like to call it, those two little entrances right at the back there.
I can't unsee that.
I mean, the thing is, yeah, you won't ever. I still haven't been able to. They can kind of play that because for Logitech Geobank, how do they contest? It's too long range for a hook to be effective. A Holt doesn't quite do it either, so it's just, it's hard. But YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT just couldn't quite decide how they want to play it. Logitech Geobank naturally can't because of it, and now already on the back foot, AKTM's had to change as well.
Yeah, and you want to see them just getting a little bit quicker, a little bit more proactive. Pulse bomb. Oh, Smileable sort of stumbled back onto it, and that cracks it open. They do lose AKTM there, but YOSHIMOTO have the upper hand here. Blue and One both forced back, and the members that were still kind of stuck out by the point go down as well. Late death on Mason, but they've got the point secured, and a Bang are dying very late in this one. Gives YOSHIMOTO plenty of time to respawn and regroup.
Nice early contest from YOSHIMOTO there as well. Didn't waste too much time. Ultimate's now coming into play, and with Logitech Geobank's composition, gets a little bit hard to recontest. When you run over a hog, it's not the speediest kind of composition. You need to be able to sit down, be stationary, and be a turret, and then make the work happen there. They've got ultimates, but you know, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to commit all of these until they can actually get their feet on the cap.
Exactly. Oh, self-destruct just snuck in behind them. Only catches Shin, but it's still plenty enough, and it's kind of thrown a Bang into disarray. They are on the back foot here, and YOSHIMOTO, they have all the tools. There is a tactical visor from One, but it's just not finding anything. Only getting the Helix Rocket connect onto Mason, and Bet too late in the fight. Once again, YOSHIMOTO will have plenty of time to respawn and regroup.
Got to commend the discipline there. Bep was on such low HP, he maybe could have transcended there to save his own life, but knew that the fight was going to be in their favor. Now they get to keep double defensive ultimates as well as AKTM's Dragon Blade. A Bang wanted to use ult here. They did use ult here. Wasn't effective. And here goes AKTM.
Right in on top of them. Sound barrier is out, though, to try and deal with it. But it was rather sound barrier on him to allow him to get aggressive. And it pays off is what really happens. The dive is just nice and clean. Logitech getting, or a Bang rather, getting pretty well picked apart. Finally making those swap-offs.
And that's the thing, right? Because they kind of got composition trapped a little bit where at 90%-ish when they had their tank ultimates, they didn't feel like swapping off. It was a hard composition to push back into, but also you've got ultimates, better use them. Now they finally get to swap, but they start on 0.
Transcendence in from Bet so that they have the legs in this fight. Last time it was the sound barrier. And once again, off the back of it, they start converting the kills. Need to save Mason, though. A little bit too late on that one, but they're still getting the conversions anyway. A Bang now find themselves in overtime without any real presence on the point. And looks like YOSHIMOTO are just kind of going to close this one out. Self-destruct on the point means no one from a Bang can touch it. Oyo tries to dive in, but just a bit too late.
And as soon as YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT got that cap back, I mean, they failed that initial engagement, which was a little poor. Like, they should have been able to identify, well, a Bang are kind of just sitting on the high ground here. They're not great at attacking the point. Maybe if we just use terrain to our advantage, we can just get an easy cap that they can't do anything about. Didn't quite do that. are kind of just half and halving their engage and unfortunately lost that fight. But once they got it back, a Bang could not get back on the point.
Yeah.
Encounт were just farming them for ults, farming them for fight wins. It was pretty one-sided once Encounт had control.
Yeah, and I mean, there's two parts to that, right? One is Encount's defense. It was good. It was proactive. I liked how they were playing it, but the other side of that is a Bang, like you said, in that sort of compositional trap. Yeah. But different situation.
That's why it was a Bang, because it's just one Bang. After that one Bang, they were done.
It's not two Bang. It's not three Bang.
It's a Bang.
It's not even the Bang. But at any rate, it is going to be a new Bang on this next map. Once again, Saint being the first casualty, and Yoshimoto just not quite finding the entrance into the fight that they're really needing. It's interesting, their dives are not clean right at the top of the game, but immediately after that, there seems to be quite good.
And with one sort of being on the Sombra here as well, and the fact that this kind of composition is reasonably difficult to dive into, what with the shotgun, and also the Reinhardt on top of that. One finding early pickouts, the hack coming into play. It's also really difficult for Yoshimoto Encounт to play with it. AKTM and Maffin, for that matter, as these sort of mobile DPSs. They don't want to be hacked, because if you get hacked, that's like an instant death.
Very proactive here out of a Bang as they just march on forward, find Bep, drop Saint's mech as well, and that's a pretty clean fight for a Bang.
And that's important for a Bang because they need to win another fight to get the EMP. So after winning fight 1, okay, they're halfway there. After winning fight 2, now they actually do have ultimates into play, finally. Ultimates are in play for Encounт as well, but look, EMP can just shut everything down. Very possible now for a Bang to just snowball this into fight number 4. If they can win that, then they got pretty much up to 99%.
Oh, that is a quick sticks EMP. And unfortunately, the storm has not been well weathered by Yoshimoto, only trading the one back here. These members are just all too low to do much. Yoshimoto are not making any headway this time around in what they did to a Bang on their defense, a Bang are now doing to them.
And the rotations start to come into play. Yes, you've lost the EMP on the Bang now, but look at the other ultimates. You get to use those while you charge up the EMP. Once those Earth Shatters and the Death Blossoms and the other things are used, then the EMP comes back into play. Yoshimoto Encounт somewhere in that rotation, and by the way, they don't have time, have to find that opening fight.
They've got to at least get in somehow, right? A Dragon Blade, maybe a hero play from AKTM, but they don't really have many tools to go on. They don't
Blade gets countered by barrier.
Yeah, exactly. They also don't really have the sound barrier or any of those defensive tools yet to make AKTM have the survivability, but they're going to look for the N anyway. There's a Death Blossom right on top of the rest of the team. AKTM forced to back away. They do catch Blue, though. They've maybe weathered enough of the storm. A bit of a whiff there from AKTM, but he's able to enter the fight. And Yoshimoto, having just survived all those tools from a Bang that didn't connect, will get themselves a fight win and the point in their favor with a fair bit of uphill battle ahead of them.
And I think you described it perfectly as well. Ultimates and tools that did not connect. The Bang had all the correct resources. The Earth Shatter was available. The Death Blossom available. Even the Self-Destruct will throw that one in there. The only one that really did its job is a sound barrier that cancelled out AKTM's Dragon Blade. But the win conditions, the Earth Shatter did not get you any kills. The Death Blossom did not get you any kills. In fact, Mason, as the Winston, actually killed Blue while the Death Blossom was happening.
That being said, the EMP could be the only ultimate they need to get back in on it. Right on top of Bep, and they run him down. Now looking to close out, but one will go down. Maffin, good follow-up on that, and Yoshimoto not out of this one yet. Oh, that is a decent pick on the Coalescence, and AKTM and Maffin both have been kind of too low to do much in this fight. Doesn't help that those supports, well, one of those supports is dead, and Bep has had a transcendence here, but he's dead. He's only just rejoining the fight now, and he's going to come back in, unfortunately, to find a couple of his key members dead. These are the ones he would have liked to have saved, but AKTM now Dragon Blade, he is still alive, he is not done yet. It's going to be a hero play though, and it's not looking like it's going to happen, at least not this time around. The blade gets sheathed, and there's just no one left here for Yoshimoto, unfortunately.
Slams down the hammer as well, just to secure everything at the end. Unfortunately misses the charge, and this is probably going to be it. Yoshimoto and Carroll not going to be able to swing this one back over into their favor. As soon as Mason goes down in the primal range, we'll be heading to map number 3 in the pool, which is going to be Village. And for a time there were some big misfires coming out from a Bang. Yoshimoto Encounт did get the counter sort of cap on there, but when they had to hold it themselves, when they themselves needed to continue their fight, needed to continue winning, they also couldn't do it. AKTN's Blade counted out once again, just couldn't manage to get in there. Crucial members died at the wrong times. Bet, you said it, with the Transcendence, had to come in late after members were already dead, use the Transcendence in the final moments, but half the team was not there to receive it.
And that wasn't really his fault either. That was the EMP out of one that kind of dealt that blow to the team. So you've actually got to consider that being very smart play here on the side of a Bang in sort of picking out Bep in that way, isolating him, prioritizing him, recognizing as well that the Transcendence would probably be a factor otherwise, and then taking those members out of the picture before he could really do anything. And that's the thing, Bep had respawned, then Hayamin died, and that meant that the DPSs that got low couldn't stay in the fight. They just kind of had to back out or risk dying.
To be honest, the EMP was reasonably, I wanted to use the word aggressive, but I think greedy is a more appropriate word because they only got one kill, if I'm not mistaken, which was on Bep. Usually on an EMP, you want to land it on a lot more members, get a lot more kills. Just getting Bep is kind of like a one-for-one ultimate trade. Trading out Transcendence for EMP is kind of even. EMP is a big enough tool that only getting one kill out of it is oftentimes not good enough. So that aside, that's like a break even for both teams. The bigger problem is the other ultimates coming into play in the execution of the 5 other members on both sides, but more importantly for YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT. Again, the Blade was not very good, and the other 4 members, aside from AKTM, couldn't really hold their own while Bep was missing.
And that's the thing. It was, like I said, it's kind of hard to. One of your supports is freshly dead. He's only just respawned. He's still on his way back into the fight. The other one is completely dead. You have no supports for that window, and you need to stay on the point. You need to keep presence, and that means you've kind of got to explode. You kind of got to go off and just get frags, get kills, which, like you said, was what they were failing to do. So it wasn't, you know, unwinnable at that position from YOSHIMOTO. The execution wasn't quite there, but it is also harder to win given how things fell. It's sort of this, the fight ended up in a position where it could have gone either way, but it went the way of a Bang, and you do at least have to compliment that, you know, the things they did right to that end, or at least the things that worked out for them.
If nothing else, this is proving to be reasonably close so far, and I'm going to have to say that with a pinch of salt here because we've seen plenty of close in the polls this evening that when we went to hybrid, it just went completely one other way. So far, it's 1-1 going on to Village. I'd be very interested to see how teams want to adapt for this. We've seen 2 versions of Village being played out. One version was the Koreans, the 2 Korean teams, Talon and Detonator, wanting to go traditional dive on the high ground. The other version was when we saw Blank play Xavier. They both went for the tank compositions onto the low ground, directly onto the point.
And this could be the third option, which is a bit of column A, a bit of column B, because it looks like Logitech G Bang going to be pulling out not quite a dive. They are throwing the pharmacy into the mix there, but YOSHIMOTO are going the full-on sort of tanky, deathball-y lineup. So we'll have to see how the Pharah pays off here, because YOSHIMOTO do get to set up on the point. Actually, yeah,
a Bang move.
Yeah, they read it, they change, they know that this is not the right composition for this situation.
And what is the right composition? Sombra and Junkrat hack the tanks, explode said tanks with mines. That's an easy way to win and get themselves back. If they're quick, they can even stop the cap.
Not quite quick enough, but they did recognize that by swapping, they were probably letting the cap go over to YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT, so this has been accounted for. Now, though, they need to at least win this subsequent fight to make it worthwhile. And yeah, Blue's ult charge indeed. YOSHIMOTO already really taken the hurt. And that tire could take them by surprise if they don't get kills quickly. Can't quite get the close out. Smiteable trying to get the follow-up. And here is that rip tire. Not quite going to get the connection, though. Only got Saint's mech, and they unfortunately lost Smiteable's mech. They do at least close out on Saint, but Coalescence from Bep kind of wards them off for now. EMP from one, though. That's the one that they're going to be able to capitalize on at long last. About 35% going over the way of YOSHIMOTO. But again, this has all been accounted for, and now a Bang set up on the defense.
And now YOSHIMOTO as well. Do they come back in with this composition? They don't want to be caught in the same compositional trap as before that a Bang were. On Sanctum, they come in with these ultimates, but they still got these big, slow, heavy tanks. And for Logitech G Bang, well, if you're one and you're blue, you're happy to face this. You're going to get another Riptire, you're going to get another EMP, and if you get both, you're going to get another win.
Or if you pick blue, you could completely change that tune, but Yoshimoto need to find their way in to start with Bet pressured out. Hyamin has to commit the sound barrier to keep legs up in this fight. Oyo, not quite quick enough to save this mech, but it is going to be the self-destruct out of Smileable. And here is that next Riptire, straight into Mason and Hyamin. Completely shuts down the push from Yoshimoto Encount, who do at least get to preserve some ultimates, but this is now a lot of time getting lost.
And it's EMP time again. Logitech G at Bang are just in position to get the job done. The good news is for Encount, they only used one ultimate there. They preserved the other 5, including the 5th one from Saint coming up. It's going to be very important. How many of these ults can they get down? How many will be impactful?
Oh, and I was going to say, and with EMP, none of those ultimates may end up mattering. Indeed, that's the case. The only one that got off was the Coalescence. But hold on, they're not dead yet because Mason hits back, and it's plenty enough. It looked like they were off to such a good start. They got so many members low, but the Coalescence was just enough to keep them in the fight. And with that inch, they take a mile.
And the key word is low, right? Because low doesn't mean kill, and because they didn't get the kills, this would be embarrassing for AK team to lose, just by the way.
Just floating away. It's like, no.
But the thing is, a Bang got all of Encount's members low. They only got like 1 kill in the middle that they needed to pick up the others. You got the EMP down. Inside the EMP, you have to stop the Earth Shadow from coming through. You have to stop the Death Blossom and the Whole Hog and just about everything else. They couldn't do that, so the combo from Encount was very deadly, and it showed.
But now a Bang cycling into the other side of that ultimate dichotomy, if you will, which is the Riptire. That's a very early Death Blossom that unfortunately gets nothing, and now the Riptire finding Bet as well. A Bang well set in this one. Self-destruct gets 2. Straight back out of the mech thanks to Saint self-destruct, but it really just does not matter. Pushing it up to 80 is something for Yoshimoto, but that was very little from that ultimate out of that Death Blossom.
And now into the 80 themselves for a Bang. Yoshimoto full change up, or at least 4 members had to, 3 rather, had to change up onto other heroes. And with that, they're not going to get another ult charge here. They got the sound barrier to play with, but that can be counted out directly by EMP.
Very quick EMP as well, and Hyamin does get caught in it. Needs to get that sound barrier in time, but it won't be quick enough to save Mason. May not be quick enough for AKTM, who's pressured out in the sky. Saint only getting Shin back in the trade. They do get 1 as well. They're not done just yet, but with Mason dead, they kind of lose the tank presence. And this could be the slam dunk Riptire to close it out. It only gets Hyamin, but I think that's going to be enough because it's really just him and Maffin around this point. Maffin's only stalling for 2 members that are still just making their way back to the point. They aren't going to get there in time, and off the back of it, Logitech G at Bang will pick up the first map of the series.
And to be quite honest, that was still something that could have gone either way. Just even at the end there, you kind of feel like, just, you know, the really bad thing is, unfortunately for Yoshimoto Encount, they just never, they had to change. They had that big hero swap right at the end there. They couldn't make that original composition work well enough. They survived that EMP in the middle to get that whole hog Earth Shadow combo down, but they couldn't really keep that going. Like, they had to eventually change off, and by the time they did, a Bang just had enough momentum to finish the map, and that's the big issue. And that's now the second time we've seen a team go onto Village, see that it's big tanks, say, we're not playing into that with Afara, let's go play something else, come back, lose a bunch of percentage points on the cap, but then still play well enough that they can win the whole map anyway.
And that was a really interesting one, a really tricky one, if you will. And look, that ultimate combo with the EMP and then the Riptire, when you can cycle between them like that, it's really hard to dislodge the defenders, because a lot of the time it can feel like the rest of your ultimates kind of don't matter. But that's the thing, right? You've got to find a way to break up that cycle somehow, either by maybe baiting out ultimates or finding some other way in. And unfortunately, Yoshimoto got neither of those things, but new map means new opportunity. And control was still close in spite of all of those things we just said. So let's see if Hollywood is kind of a different kettle of fish here for Yoshimoto.
And it may just be because we've now seen across this evening, Hollywood is where everything kind of changes.
Yeah.
Nepal, look, it's close, it doesn't matter. Nepal goes out the window super quick as soon as you go into the hybrid. It just seems like one team really picks it up and the other team drops the ball quite hard. Who is it exactly going to be here? A little bit harder to tell. When it was blank, you thought, okay, Blank's going to keep winning here. When it was Detonator Korea, you think, okay, Detonator Korea is going to keep winning here. But right now, between a Bang and YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT, to be quite honest, there's a good chance YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT come back swinging quite hard here, and a Bang they don't continue.
Yeah, neither of these teams are Detonator Korea or Blank. This is not the kind of series where I think we're going to see one just start to run away with it based off the first map's results. So, look, I do still think there is really a world here where YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT start pulling the series back, but we do also have to consider that they are currently 0-1 down in it. So it's also the situation where a Bang can push us to match point here. So I still believe it's very much doable here for YOSHIMOTO, but something does have to change here. They do need to start tidying up the macro just a little better.
And I think even if we did go to match point here, even if this was a 2-0, both of these teams have now a decent amount of experience going to map 5. I think it'd definitely be quite possible. We've said so far, we've seen a lot of map 5s in Pacific every single night. In fact, we've seen at least one match go to map 5. This is probably the one of this evening that is likely to go to map 5.
Yeah, if any, right? But it could also be that tonight is the first night we don't see a full 5, either by way of a 3-1 or a 3-0. And in both of those situations, it is actually a Bang, so they're already kind of on the march for that. It's going to be them on the defense first as well, unsurprisingly. We'll have to see how this pharmacy pays off this time for YOSHIMOTO.
Yeah, because we've seen AKTM kind of pull it out so far. It's been, unfortunately, kind of shut down as well. One's well and truly ready to take care of this when the time is right, though, because so far it's been pushed out.
Yeah, this is what we saw earlier tonight, though, with Detonator Korea when they were running the pharmacy. They just kind of pressured the defenders into this restaurant, but a Bang not going to fall prey to the same set play. So they do pick off Hyam and start to bust out of prison. Finishing off Saint's mech, closing out on the tanks as well. No real counter trades to come in for YOSHIMOTO aside from Smileable's mech. Nicely handled by a Bang, rather.
And this is kind of like a wave crashing on the beach, right? It's kind of where YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT will try their best to break through, trap a Bang inside the cafe, and then just overwhelm them. But a Bang, if they can take the brunt of that wave, then come back out swinging. When one is free, when he gets out of jail, he just kind of just collapses himself on top of YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT. AKTM now swapping onto Sombra, just not feeling the fire tonight.
That's a good point. Is it a restaurant or is it a cafe?
I think it's a cafe.
I think it's a bistro. So we can't decide whether it's a restaurant or a cafe, it's a bistro. And with that, YOSHIMOTO changing up the composition, still not finding the headway, the self-destruct as well, just to kind of seal it in. And the tech buys it, that does mean a lot of resources used for a Bang here.
It's a good trade, though, because, it's not really, for a defensive team, especially onto A, there's not a lot of fallback here. You just got to keep on winning. And for them to keep on winning, they got to use resources. Reasonably cheap still, YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT. They're waiting for their next ultimates to come up. Next ultimates being, the big one has to be EMP. Whenever you see a Sombra, the big one is always EMP.
Committing in, but there's the sound barrier immediately there for Shen, and they will be cycling into a Transcendence as well. Need to get kills quick, smart, while the Coalescence is running, but not getting the conversion just yet. Now YOSHIMOTO a little bit on the back foot, Transcendence out from Oyo. Still no kills coming through. Decent hack onto Narc. Stops the Primal Rage from coming through. They can close out, which they can. They do lose Hyam, but they catch Blue with Saint self-destruct. Losing the extra healer, though, means YOSHIMOTO now don't have anything to fall back on. If these members get too low, then they just get forced out of the fight altogether. And it looks like, the tactical visor late, but there aren't those healers to keep YOSHIMOTO topped off. The bubble is something. They are able to dive away. One not finding any kills. And now Hyaman's rejoined the fray. AKTM as well getting back in. Will have the EMP here. So a Bang. Actually, YOSHIMOTO just kind of giving them the space here. They could have stayed in there. Oh!
What?
What happened there, AKTM?
I really hope he fat-fingered that one, because otherwise decision-making has to be questioned.
Truth is both are bad.
Why would you? That's true, but one is slightly worse. And now with that, the shame swap even just onto a different hero is like, well, I'm going to make it look like I was changing anyway. Anyway, onto the Genji. It is. Sound barrier is the only thing they've got. And if this doesn't work, they're probably going to get...
Oh, AKTM kind of walking into that. It had been stuck onto, I believe it was Saint's mech, but that's time that YOSHIMOTO can't afford to lose, and now this is a route they can't afford to have happen. And that last fight, by the way, wasn't lost yet by them. They backed out when they didn't need to, and they've just kind of lost time for it.
And by the way, if a Bang didn't get that nice stick kill that ended up killing AKTM, this might have been 1.5 fights for YOSHIMOTO ENCOUNT, but now it's just going to be the one. They don't get that heart, they don't get that extra life, if you will. This is it.
And they're committing very hard, very fast. They know they need to make it count as they dive right in onto one, do get the conversion. And this is YOSHIMOTO at their best, at their most decisive. They get Oyo, only losing AKTM, but the Coalescence out of BEP keeps everyone else nice and healthy, as a Bang are the ones finding themselves without really any tools to continue closing out. They lose Blue. The sound barrier from Shin is something, but it's only keeping these tanks alive. Tanks that just end up feeding ultimate charge into the side of YOSHIMOTO, who currently have the deeper pockets. One, this time thanks to that lovely defense matrix out of Saint, who did end up losing his mech, or rather committed it in a self-destruct to force one out of the position. Gets to remake anyway. YOSHIMOTO, it's overtime, but they will get the card underway.
Despite all the misfires, the final push is the one that really counts. The final one where they actually couldn't make any more mistakes. Any further mistakes here would have costed them the entire map, but they get to play B. 2 minutes 30 to play B within AKTM. He's been picked out so early. It doesn't even matter what he plays. Genji, Pharah, Sombra, doesn't really matter. He's been picked out reasonably early to start things off with, but now he needs to be healthy. He needs to get a good blade off, and he needs to be unseen.
And they also need to not let someone get picked off early by the likes of Blue. Good follow-up from Saint and Maffin, but Saint will lose his mech for his trouble. Needs to pull back as well, and this is an overextension from YOSHIMOTO. Unfortunately, a Bang kind of making the best of a bad situation there, and not quite losing the members that got super low in that.
And the reason a Bang are able to make this kind of defense is if you look at what happened onto A, they didn't try and get a last-minute contest in there. They gave up the point after 1.5 ticks went through. They said, that's it. We're not going back in. It's all lost. Now we set up for B. Because they got the set up for B, Encounт thought they could snowball onto B while the cart was still kind of making its way out of that spawn area, but they couldn't. They got punished. Now the next attempt.
Sound barrier from Hyman again, very aggressive inward, but no conversion, and AKTM dies to one. That pulse bomb that Blue preserved via death from the last fight connects onto BEP, and already YOSHIMOTO not finding anything for that one. And how many times am I going to say that, right? How many times are they going to get these commitments but just not convert kills?
But it's crazy because when you get into the overtime, they get these amazing fights where they're just super decisive. It's in these other fights when they have time remaining, they got space to play with. It's like they're just not as decisive. They're a little bit more scared. They're a little bit less, you know. They just don't have that conviction there.
AKTM is really going to have to make this Widowmaker pay dividends. He doesn't have much time on it. And a Bang know it. They've got ultimates. They know that they can just get aggressive. They can just waste YOSHIMOTO's time here and get a win via that.
This time around, even if YOSHIMOTO Encounт get this amazing overtime fight, they can't just win off it. Look at where the cart is. The cart is not in a position where one overtime fight gets you a B cap. One overtime fight gets you a fight win that allows you to start pushing the cart. And I have to say, start pushing the cart.
You've got to get about 2 or 3 fight wins here to really actually cap the point. Maybe YOSHIMOTO just playing for distance to help them with that own defense again. Blue going nuts on the back line as one able to open up with that tactical visor after getting a Helix rocket kill. Just drilling down the hit points of those tanks, and that's as far as YOSHIMOTO are going to go.
It's reasonably disappointing, unfortunately, for YOSHIMOTO Encount. A lot of that does come down to the fact that on A, they just didn't do themselves enough favors. Only could cap it in the overtime, and even then it seemed like a miracle push. It was a miracle, but lightning doesn't strike twice in the same spot for YOSHIMOTO Encount. Couldn't make the magic happen again onto B. It was almost seemingly a little bit inevitable that they were just hitting brick wall after brick wall after brick wall. No ultimate was working. Nothing AKTM was changing onto was necessarily working. The Genjis, the blades were not good, unfortunately. The fire got pushed out very early by one. And the AKTM Widowmaker as well, like that just, again, just wasn't good enough. On the other hand, look at a Bang. One, Blue, Ultimates, Tracer, everything was firing off.
And isn't that the truth? What you said, not what's on that. I have no idea what that says. It may be the truth for all I know. I can read a Bang. That's about it.
I can also read the emoji.
It actually occurred to me during that game, Oyo's name may be an emoji.
It could be, but because he's used 3 English letters, we can say Oyo. So thank you.
Thankfully.
Thankfully, otherwise it'd be like
Very...
it'd be Smiler Bell and Smiley Face.
Yeah, smiley face. What if it's one of those really complex emojis?
Just keep it simple. What happened to the old colon bracket? Like, just
I know.
keep
It was just like, it was smiley
New
face.
age kids want to do the craziest emotes. Like, I don't know what's up.
That being said, I am glad that the shrug emote exists. It's quite a complex emote, all things considered, but it is a very expressive one. Same with thinking. There is that is a very complex, English classes of the future are going to study the depths of possibilities of the thinking emoji.
Like, I don't even want to imagine
so much
what that's gonna look like. Gates have opened though, a bang, don't need that much distance. The hardest part will be getting A. It might actually not even be that hard. A lot of teams, Detonator Career Blank included, just got this on their first attempt, so if they don't get on their first attempt, Encounт can then snowball their defense. That's what they're gonna look for.
And they kind of need it too. They've not got a super snowbally defense with something like a Sombra. There's the dive already in for a bang, but the tank's not quite weathering all that damage. Yeah, so far at least, but they're certainly not done yet, and that is still progress on the point for a bang, while YOSHIMOTO is still kind of continuing up with the punish. In fact, that's 2 ticks. Encounт, they haven't committed. They didn't close out on Narc. It's like they thought they were still getting dove even when they weren't, and now that they do pile in, a bang are ready for them.
Oh man, that's unfortunately a little bit painful. Look, they shut down Smilable's mech. That should be the go button. They should be able to convert a lot more off that. After the first tick, you're like, okay, well, they sacrificed the tick. It's not the end of the world. They still win. After the second tick, it's like, well, this looks kind of bad now. Because even if they win, it's like very capable. Then they just lose the entire point, and now there's 5 minutes and 20 seconds remaining to not even push the full way with the card.
Narc had like 100 hit points. It's like YOSHIMOTO thought that they'd actually lost it when they hadn't. Now they have to really work hard. Like you said, 5 minutes and already a bang getting aggressive. YOSHIMOTO had to dive for this card.
Here's the visor.
Yeah, and that's what a bang wants out of them. They want to be pushing YOSHIMOTO to play to their beats here. That is how they win, and you can see them just picking off YOSHIMOTO as they try and pile onto the cart. AKTM, Tac Visor getting nothing, but even then not able to get anywhere near to that. That was YOSHIMOTO losing that game more than it was a bang winning it.
I don't know what it is. Like I said, like Hollywood just does something to these teams. Like we get there and it's just like a full one-sided affair.
I really thought this was going to be the different one.
Like once, twice, you're like, okay, well, whatever, that's like a fluke. But 3 times, like how many more times do we need to see this?
That's the thing, kid.
People don't like Hollywood. They go to Hollywood. Get out. I don't want to be.
That's the thing with Hollywood, kid. Some people walk away stars. Other people walk away unemployed and hungry.
And that's when you become aggressive street buskers on Hollywood Boulevard.
I'm sure you will buy that mixtape next time. I'm sure. But
I had that. By the way, I had that guy. The guy that wanted to sell me a mixtape. He was really aggressive.
It's real. It's real.
It's not. That's not a fake thing. Like some guy really wanted. He's like, yeah, I'm going to Auckland. I'm like, I'm sure you are. Like you're not. But
it kind of bothers me when I go somewhere and the stereotype turns out to be real. It just boggles my mind, man. But at any rate, in terms of things that also boggled my mind was just how sour this series has suddenly turned for YOSHIMOTO Encounт.
They could do a Xavier, though.
They could Xavier, but even Xavier didn't Xavier early tonight. But here's the thing, right? I mean, look, history of the night so far notwithstanding, it would be really, really rough for YOSHIMOTO to walk away with an 0-4 loss here.
How could this be their worst loss?
Yeah,
this can't be their worst loss. They've got to be against much tough competition.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's a loss, it's got to be a competitive one, but they have no more time left. It has to be the next map or bust.
All right, when we're out of time on map 2 as well. When we come back, though, maps 3 and 4, and maybe even 5 will continue between YOSHIMOTO, Encounт, and Logitech Gia Bang. We'll see you then.